The slap
She hit
cracked
him!
through the
Nobody
first-class
move!
cabin,
Call the gate!
and every
We all saw
conversation
that!
died.
Sit down, everyone!
He refused
The quiet
orders.
black man
My
in the
ticket is
window
valid.
seat did not
Stand
raise
up
his
now.
voice.
Are you certain?
Certain
He
of what?
touched the
That you want
small
this
silver
witnessed? Sir,
pin
cooperate.
inside his
Verify
coat
the
and
seat.
asked,
Check the computer. Stay
"Are
out
you
of this.
certain you
That
want
would
to
have
do
taken
this
30
in front of
seconds.
everyone?"
You do not belong in this seat.
Why had
scanner
the flight
cleared me.
attendant
My
decided
list
he
says
did
otherwise.
not belong
Your
there?
list is outdated.
Why did the captain
His
fall
screen says
silent
2A.
when he saw the name on the
Remove
passenger
him.
list?
Sir, step into the aisle.
And why, 1 minute
Did you
later,
check the manifest?
did every
He is
person in
non-compliant.
first class
Do you have
rise?
identification?
I have a valid ticket.
He had boarded
Identification.
carrying
Read it carefully.
grief,
He threatened the
not
crew.
power.
I asked for
But before
verification.
the
She
doors
struck him
opened
first.
again,
Everyone
the
stay seated.
cabin
Wait.
would learn
What?
what dignity looks
Finish
like
reading.
under
Sir.
pressure.
Those are 3 stars.
Stay to
Who
the
is
end,
he?
because the
Lieutenant
truth
General.
behind that
That
silver
can't be
pin
right. My rank
changes
is not the
everything.
issue. Bring him back to his seat. Everyone
The
sit
spoon
down.
finished its slow
What is his
circle
name?
beneath
Sir,
seat
this passenger
1C
is- I followed
and
procedure.
fell flat.
No.
No one moved.
You followed
Claire
an
said,
assumption.
though
Lieutenant
nobody
General.
had. Her palm still hovered near Malcolm's face. Malcolm lowered his hand from the silver pin inside his coat. "Call the gate." "I said stand up." Across the aisle, Evelyn Park held her phone chest high. A red recording light trembled above her thumb. Grant stepped between the rows. "Sir, you are delaying departure." "My boarding pass is valid." That is not the issue now. It was the only issue 30 seconds ago. Someone whispered, "She hit him." No one answered. Claire reached for Malcolm's canvas bag. He placed 2 fingers on the handle. "Do not touch that." "Then remove it yourself." He stood and moved into the aisle. Cold air slid through the open door, carrying rain and jet fuel. Daniel Ortiz rose 2 rows back. "Ma'am, stop." "Sit down. I saw what happened. You saw a passenger refuse instructions. I saw you grab his phone, then strike him." Grant pointed toward Daniel's seat. "This does not involve you." Daniel's gaze dropped to Malcolm's open coat. 3 silver stars caught the cabin light before the fabric folded over them. His expression changed. Malcolm buttoned the coat. The interphone chimed. Claire snatched it up. "Yes?" A voice asked whether the cabin was secure. "Not yet. We have a disruptive passenger." Evelyn spoke without lowering her phone. "That is false." Claire covered the receiver. "Recording crew members is prohibited." "No, it isn't." 2 more phones appeared above the seatbacks. Grant looked toward the door. "Security is coming." Malcolm checked the time. 6:42 p.m. A message from Leah filled his screen. "They're seating the scholarship families. Mom's picture is beside the podium. Tell me you're in the air," he typed. "Still boarding," then erased it. Claire saw the screen. "Put that away." He locked it without replying. Daniel stepped into the aisle. "Sir, may I ask your name?" "No." The answer was exact. Claire gave a thin laugh. Refusal after refusal. Malcolm looked at Grant. "Ask the gate agent to read the electronic manifest." "We have our list." "You have a printout." Grant glanced at the tablet clipped beside Claire's folder. Footsteps struck the jet bridge, quick and hollow. Evelyn adjusted her grip. "I have the entire exchange." "You will delete it," Claire said. "No." The man in seat 3D stood. He stepped into the aisle and faced the front. His wife followed, then a woman in 2C. Seatbelts clicked loose one after another. Grant lifted both hands. Everyone remained seated. Daniel stayed where he was. "Read the name on his pass." "This is not a courtroom," Claire snapped. "No," Evelyn said. "That's why I'm recording." 2 security officers appeared at the aircraft door. "Which passenger?" Claire pointed. "Him." The officer held out a hand. "Identification, sir." Malcolm reached inside his coat. The cabin grew so quiet that the ventilation hiss sounded like rain against glass. He placed a leather credential case in the officer's palm. Daniel saw the seal on its cover. His shoulders straightened. The officer opened it, read the first line, and looked up at Malcolm. Then he turned slowly toward Claire. At 6:45 that morning, Malcolm turned the second coffee cup so its handle faced the empty chair. The kitchen was cold, rain ticking against the window. He stood in shirt sleeves while the coffee machine clicked itself quiet. His phone rang. "You're awake," Leah said. "I said I would be. You said that last year." Malcolm looked at the untouched cup. "Last year was different. It was Mom's birthday." "I know." The refrigerator hummed between them. "The scholarship families are coming early," Leah said. "The first student wants to meet you." "What time?" 7:15, not after the speeches." "I'll be there." "You're taking a commercial flight?" "Yes." "Without an aide?" "This is not an inspection. It's still you traveling." He folded a paper napkin into a square. "I can carry my own bag." "That bag is older than I am." "It still closes." Her small laugh faded. "Dad, I need you in the room before we start." He looked toward Naomi's photograph on the shelf. She was pinning 3 silver stars to his uniform while he tried not to smile. "I heard you." "No, say it." "I will be there before you start." After the call, Malcolm poured the untouched coffee into the sink. Steam carried the smell of dark roast. He washed both cups, dried one, and left the other upside down on the rack. Upstairs, he passed over the dress uniform and chose a charcoal coat, white shirt, dark trousers, and worn shoes. On the dresser lay a narrow velvet box. He opened it. The silver insignia rested beside a folded note in Naomi's handwriting. "Don't let the stars make you late for dinner." His fingers missed the top button twice. He sat on the bed until the radiator knocked, then placed the insignia in his inner pocket. At 7:18, a sedan waited outside. Captain Aaron Wells stood beside it, rain shining on his shaved head. "Sir, I can ride with you." "No. We can use the service entrance. I booked a seat." Wells glanced at the canvas bag. "Let me take that." Malcolm kept hold of it. "You have a briefing." "I can move it." "Don't." Wells opened the rear door. "General, today I'm Leah's father." The younger officer nodded. Malcolm stopped. "Cancel the car." "Sir, I'll take the train." "In this weather?" "It arrives on schedule more often than we do." Wells almost smiled. "Your return?" "I'll call." The platform smelled of wet concrete and hot metal. Commuters pressed beneath a flickering heater, coats brushing Malcolm's sleeves. No one recognized him. He preferred it. At 8:03, Leah sent a photograph of the auditorium. Naomi's portrait stood beside white flowers. One front-row chair carried a paper card. Reserved. Malcolm Reed. He enlarged the misspelled name and typed, "Save it." Your mother would have laughed. Leah replied with a heart. At the airport, he bought water, folded the receipt into his wallet, and checked his gate twice. His boarding pass showed 2A in white letters. A delay notice flashed, disappeared, then returned with a new aircraft number. Behind the desk, a printer began spitting out replacement passenger lists. Malcolm slipped the phone into his pocket and walked toward security, unaware that one of those lists had left his name behind. Priority boarding for first class is now open. The announcement echoed through Gate 18 just after 5:50 p.m. Outside the wide windows, November rain streaked across the floodlit runway, turning every taxi light into a blurred ribbon of gold. Malcolm Reed adjusted the strap of his faded canvas bag and remained where he was. Families hurried past him, rolling suitcases rattling over the polished floor. A businessman squeezed around his shoulder without looking back. "You're not in a rush?" asked a gray-haired woman standing nearby with a small carry-on. "I've learned airplanes don't leave because I walk faster," Malcolm replied. She smiled. "Fair enough." Only when the priority line shortened did he step forward. His charcoal coat was still damp from the rain, and the faint smell of wet wool followed him as he reached the scanner. Melissa Kane, the 32-year-old gate agent with freckles and tired blue eyes, accepted his boarding pass. "Good evening, sir." She scanned it. A bright green light flashed. A soft beep confirmed the ticket. "Seat 2A. You're all set." "Thank you." As Malcolm took one step toward the jet bridge, a sharp voice interrupted. "Hold on." Claire Harlan approached with quick, practiced strides. Her blonde hair was pulled into a flawless bun, her navy scarf perfectly aligned despite the hectic boarding. "Melissa," she said quietly, "show me that pass." Melissa hesitated before handing it over. Claire compared it with a freshly printed passenger manifest resting on her clipboard. Her forehead tightened. "I don't have a read in first class." Melissa glanced back at the scanner. "But the system accepted it." Claire tapped the paper with one fingernail. "The printed manifest is final." Malcolm spoke calmly. "The electronic system cleared me. I heard the beep. Then we're done." "No," Claire answered. "Sometimes boarding passes are duplicated or reassigned after equipment changes." Melissa looked between them. "There was an aircraft swap this afternoon." Claire cut her off. "Exactly." She handed the boarding pass back, but didn't move. "Please wait while I verify your seat." Malcolm nodded once. "I'll wait." Passengers continued filing onto the aircraft. The smell of fresh coffee drifted from a nearby kiosk. Somewhere farther down the concourse, a child laughed before being hurried toward another gate. Melissa quietly reopened the reservation screen. "His ticket still shows confirmed." Claire leaned closer. "Refresh it." Melissa obeyed. The same result appeared. "Still confirmed." Claire frowned. "My manifest hasn't changed." She folded the clipboard against her chest. "Board the remaining passengers. I'll handle this one." Melissa looked uncomfortable. "Yes, Claire." Within minutes, the waiting area emptied. Only Malcolm, Claire, and the cleaning crew remained near the gate entrance. Claire finally gestured toward the jet bridge. "Go ahead." He thanked her and walked forward without another word. The enclosed bridge hummed with ventilation fans. Cold air slipped through narrow seams around the windows, carrying the distant scent of jet fuel. A flight attendant greeted him at the aircraft door. "Welcome aboard." Malcolm found seat 2A exactly where his boarding pass indicated. He placed the worn canvas bag carefully beneath the seat in front of him, removed his phone, and typed a short message. "Boarding now. Right on schedule." Leah answered almost immediately. Mom would be proud. A faint smile crossed his face. He locked the screen and rested one hand on the old canvas bag. Inside, beside neatly folded documents and a framed photograph of Naomi, lay the small velvet case containing 3 silver stars. A few rows behind him, Claire stepped into the cabin carrying the same printed manifest. She stopped when she reached row 2. Her eyes moved from the paper to Malcolm. Claire stopped beside seat 2A and laid the printed manifest across the closed service folder in her hands. "Sir, I need you to move to the rear cabin." Malcolm looked up from his phone. Warm reading lights reflected on the dark screen before he locked it and slipped it into his coat pocket. "My boarding pass says 2A. "It does." "Then why would I move?" "Because my passenger list does not place you here." The last few first-class travelers were still arranging coats and laptop bags. The overhead bins clicked shut one after another while the low hum of conditioned air filled the cabin. Malcolm reached into the outer pocket of his coat and unfolded the boarding pass. "You're welcome to compare it." Claire barely glanced at it. "I've already compared it." "With the electronic manifest?" with the list that matters. He held the paper a second longer before folding it again with precise movements. The electronic record cleared me at the gate. Claire crossed her arms. Sir, this conversation has gone on long enough. It has lasted less than a minute. A businessman across the aisle lowered his newspaper. An older woman in the second row watched without touching the glass of water on her tray. Claire tapped the empty aisle with one polished shoe. Please collect your belongings. Malcolm leaned down, slid the canvas bag onto his lap, and unzipped the front pocket. Instead of removing his things, he calmly produced his phone. I'll show you the digital boarding pass. I don't need another screen. The display illuminated his face. Seat 2. A. Confirmation code. Boarded. He turned it toward her. Claire looked for barely a second. Digital records can be manipulated. Melissa's voice suddenly came from the aircraft door. Claire? The younger gate agent stood uncertainly beside the entrance. I checked the reservation twice. Claire answered without looking back. Thank you. I'll finish this. Melissa hesitated. The system still... I said I'll finish it. The younger woman slowly stepped away. Malcolm watched her disappear onto the jet bridge. You dismissed the only person who checked the reservation. I dismissed someone who doesn't supervise this cabin. He quietly placed the phone back into his pocket. Then perhaps call operations. We're already behind schedule. I arrived before boarding. That isn't the point. No, he replied softly. It isn't. The captain's announcement interrupted them. Cabin crew, prepare doors for departure. Claire pressed the interphone. Captain, we're resolving a seating issue. 2 minutes, came the reply. She looked directly at Malcolm. You're delaying an entire aircraft. I'm sitting in the seat printed on my ticket. You're refusing instructions. I've asked only for verification. The businessman cleared his throat. She could check the computer again. Claire turned sharply. Sir, this doesn't concern you. It concerns everyone if we're waiting. Across the aisle, Evelyn Park quietly unlocked her phone beneath the edge of her shawl. Its camera opened without a sound. Daniel Ortiz, seated several rows behind, noticed the movement, but kept watching Claire instead. Malcolm rested one hand on the worn canvas bag. Inside, the velvet case shifted slightly as the aircraft settled on its landing gear. Claire noticed the careful way he protected the bag. What's in there? Personal belongings. I may need to inspect it. No. The answer was calm, immediate. You don't have authority to search my property because of a seating discrepancy. Claire's jaw tightened. You're making this much harder than necessary. No, Malcolm said. I'm asking you to follow your own procedure. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across several passengers' faces. No one spoke. Only the ventilation whispered above them, and somewhere near the galley, a coffee pot clicked as it finished brewing. Claire slowly reached toward the phone still visible inside Malcolm's coat pocket. I'll verify it myself. Don't. Malcolm's voice was quiet, but Claire stopped for a fraction of a second with her fingers inches from his coat pocket. I'll verify the boarding pass myself, she said. You may ask to see it, Malcolm replied. You may not take my phone. Grant Bell appeared from the forward galley, smoothing the sleeve of his navy jacket as though the wrinkle bothered him more than the growing line of waiting passengers outside. Claire, we still have the seating problem. Grant glanced at his watch. Door should have been closed 3 minutes ago. He refuses to move. Malcolm looked at him. I refuse to surrender a seat that was assigned to me. Grant extended an open hand. Boarding pass. Malcolm placed the paper ticket into it without hesitation. Grant compared it with the printed manifest clipped beneath Claire's folder. The overhead reading lights reflected across both pages. "They don't match," he muttered. "They match electronically," Malcolm answered. Grant did not respond. Instead, he folded the paper once and handed it back. "Our printed manifest is the working document. The electronic manifest is the official record. We're not debating procedures." "No," Malcolm said evenly. "We're deciding whether to follow them." The cabin fell still. A child somewhere behind the curtain asked why the airplane was not moving. His mother answered in a whisper that nobody could quite hear. Claire leaned closer to Grant. "My annual evaluation is next week, if this departure is delayed again." Grant nodded almost imperceptibly. "We're not holding everyone because of one passenger." Evelyn Park watched the exchange over the top of her glasses. Her phone remained hidden inside her shawl, its camera recording through a narrow fold in the fabric. She whispered toward the businessman beside her. "Did you hear that?" He nodded without taking his eyes off the aisle. Daniel Ortiz slowly unbuckled his watch strap, tightened it again, and continued watching Malcolm. Something about the older man's posture bothered him. It was too disciplined, too controlled. Even standing in the middle of an argument, his shoulders never drifted, his breathing never quickened. Grant folded his arms. "One last time, sir. Move to an open seat in the rear, and we'll review everything after landing." Malcolm shook his head once. "If my ticket is valid now, it will still be valid in an hour." "That isn't how operations work. It is how accountability works." Claire exhaled sharply. "This is exactly why flights get delayed." "No," Evelyn said from across the aisle, her voice calm but unmistakable. "Flights get delayed when no one checks the facts." Claire turned. "Ma'am, please stay out of this." "I was trying to." Grant stepped forward, placing himself between Malcolm and the rest of first class. "Enough discussion." He reached toward the call panel beside the galley entrance and pressed a button. A soft chime echoed through the cabin. "What was that?" Daniel asked. "Ground assistance," Grant replied. "They'll remove the passenger if necessary." Daniel's eyes drifted back to Malcolm just as the older man adjusted his coat. For a heartbeat, the fabric opened. A silver insignia caught the warm cabin light before disappearing beneath the charcoal lapel again. Daniel frowned. He had seen those stars before, just not on many people. The interphone light remained red beside Grant's hand. "Ground assistance is coming," he said. "Sit down." Daniel stayed in the aisle. "Compare his ticket with mine first." Claire turned. "Take your seat." He held up his phone. "Same format, same aircraft change, same digital confirmation." Grant barely looked. "This is not your concern. It became my concern when you called a valid passenger disruptive." Cold air moved through the open door. Coffee in the galley gave off a bitter smell. Malcolm sat with the unused seatbelt across his knees, its metal buckle cold in his palm. "Fasten it," Grant said. "You ordered me removed." "Until security decides otherwise." Malcolm set the buckle beside his thigh. "Then choose which instruction you want followed." Leather creaked as passengers shifted. No one spoke. Claire raised the printed sheet. "His name is not here." Daniel stepped closer. "Did you ask the gate agent to check the live manifest?" She checked. She said it was confirmed. "She is not cabin leadership." "No," Malcolm said. "She is the person with access to the reservation." The captain's voice came through the interphone. "Cabin status?" Grant lifted the receiver. "One non-compliant passenger. Ground team responding." Malcolm looked at him. "Tell him this began with a seating list." Grant turned away. Daniel spoke louder. Tell him the electronic system confirmed 2A. Claire pointed toward his row. Sit down, or you'll be included in the report. The words settled over the cabin. Daniel returned to his row, but instead of sitting, he placed his boarding pass on the seat back. 2D, he said, boarded after the same equipment swap. Evelyn brought her phone out from beneath her shawl. And I recorded the gate agent saying his reservation was confirmed. Claire stared at the lens. Recording crew is prohibited. Show me the rule. Put it away. No. Grant stepped toward her, then stopped when the businessman beside Evelyn raised his own phone. I'm recording too. Another screen lit near the window, then another. Malcolm looked down at Leah's unanswered message. Mom's picture is beside the podium. His thumb hovered above the keyboard. Claire noticed. Phones away during crew instructions. He locked it. Call the gate, he said. We are beyond that. No, you chose to move beyond it. Footsteps sounded from the jet bridge, distant but growing louder. Grant straightened his jacket. Final opportunity to cooperate. Malcolm looked at Claire's manifest. Read the name on my boarding pass aloud. Neither answered. Read it, Evelyn said. Claire lowered the paper. Daniel's gaze returned to Malcolm's coat. The silver stars were hidden, but their shape remained clear in his mind. Sir, he asked, were you assigned to Fort Carver 3 years ago? Malcolm did not turn. That is not relevant. Daniel went still. Only one man he knew answered questions that way, briefly, without denial, making the room quieter afterward. The footsteps stopped outside the door. A voice called from the jet bridge. Which passenger are we removing? Grant raised his hand toward Malcolm before anyone had checked a single screen. Soft instrumental music drifted through the cabin speakers as if nothing unusual had happened. Grant pointed toward Malcolm without looking at the security officers. Seat 2A. 2 airport security employees stepped aboard. One carried a tablet, the other a small incident folder. Sir, the older officer said, would you come with us? Malcolm looked up calmly. Have you reviewed the electronic manifest? We're here because the crew requested assistance. That wasn't my question. The officer hesitated. Claire folded her arms. He has refused repeated instructions. I've requested repeated verification, Malcolm answered. Grant stepped closer. You're delaying departure for everyone. Malcolm slowly rose from his seat. His canvas bag remained beneath the seat in front of him. I'll come voluntarily, he said, after my property comes with me. Claire bent toward the bag. We'll inspect it outside. No. She reached anyway. Malcolm placed his hand over the worn strap before she touched it. You don't have permission. The movement lasted less than a second. Claire jerked her hand back. Don't interfere with the crew. I already asked you not to touch my belongings. The cabin became perfectly still. A coffee cup rattled softly on a tray table as the aircraft shifted beneath the boarding bridge. Grant spoke first. Everyone witnessed him resisting. No, Evelyn said from row 2. Everyone witnessed you ignoring him. Claire turned sharply. You're making this worse. I haven't said anything until now. You've been recording. I have. Claire took 2 quick steps toward Evelyn. Delete it. No. Delete it immediately. Several passengers exchanged uneasy glances. Daniel remained standing beside his seat. Leave her alone. This doesn't concern you either. It concerns every person watching. Claire stopped beside Malcolm again. Her breathing had become noticeably faster. You're creating a hostile environment. Malcolm answered quietly. The environment changed when procedure stopped mattering. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The soft melody from the cabin speakers continued. Somewhere behind the curtain, a flight attendant dropped a metal serving spoon. It struck the galley floor with a bright metallic ring before rolling in a slow circle. Every head turned. Claire's shoulders tightened. "You've embarrassed this crew long enough." Without another word, she raised her hand. The sound of the slap cut through the cabin. No one screamed. No one spoke. The spoon finished its slow circle and lay still against the galley cabinet. Malcolm neither stepped back nor raised his voice. His face turned only slightly from the impact. Then he looked back at Claire. "Are you certain," he asked evenly, "that this was the decision you wanted to make?" His right hand slipped inside his charcoal coat. Not quickly, not defensively, only far enough to steady the small velvet case that had shifted with the blow. For an instant, the lapel opened. 3 silver stars caught the warm cabin light before disappearing again. Daniel's eyes widened. He had seen those insignia only during official military ceremonies. Claire noticed nothing. She was already pointing toward the aircraft door. "Remove him." The older security officer took the leather credential wallet Malcolm offered without resistance. He opened it. His eyes moved across the first line. Then he stopped reading. The color drained from his face. The jet bridge felt 10 degrees colder than the cabin. The older security officer closed the leather credential wallet without a word and looked at Malcolm again. "Sir, would you step this way?" Malcolm picked up the canvas bag himself. "Of course." Claire exhaled as though the problem had finally been solved. "Thank you." He didn't answer. The younger officer walked beside him while Grant remained at the aircraft door. "We'll finish the paperwork outside," Grant said. Malcolm paused before crossing the threshold. "My phone stays with me." "No one asked for it," the older officer replied quietly. They stepped onto the empty boarding bridge. The aircraft door remained open behind them, and the murmur of anxious passengers drifted into the narrow corridor. Outside the windows, rain slid across the glass, blurring the airport lights into long streaks of white and amber. "May I see the credential again?" the older officer asked. Malcolm handed it over. This time, the officer opened it completely. His breathing slowed. "General Reed." Malcolm raised one finger. "Not here." The officer nodded immediately. "Yes, sir." The younger officer leaned closer, read the identification, and looked back with visible disbelief. I didn't know." "You weren't supposed to," Malcolm said. "Today I boarded as a passenger." Behind them, Claire's voice echoed from inside the aircraft. "Has he been removed?" Grant answered before either officer could speak. "We're documenting the incident." Malcolm rested the canvas bag against the wall and sat on the cold metal bench fixed beneath the window. The chill passed through his coat almost instantly. His phone vibrated. Leah. He stared at the screen for several seconds before pressing play on the voice message. "Dad, everyone's here. They're asking when you'll arrive. Mom's portrait looks beautiful tonight." She laughed softly. "Don't be late this time, okay?" The recording ended. For the first time that evening, Malcolm closed his eyes. He slipped the phone back into his pocket without replying. The velvet case inside the bag had shifted during the confrontation. He opened the zipper just enough to straighten it. The silver stars rested exactly where Naomi had placed them years earlier. "They always kept you grounded," she had once whispered while pinning them onto his dress uniform. He closed the bag. The older officer lowered his voice. "Sir, if you authorize it, I can inform Airport Command immediately." "You can." "And the airline?" "They'll have their chance to explain." Neither officer spoke again. Only the steady hiss of the ventilation filled the jet bridge. A sharp, metallic sound broke the silence. The silver insignia had slipped from the edge of the partly opened bag and landed on the cold aluminum floor. It spun once, twice, then stopped between Malcolm's shoes. He looked at it for several long seconds without bending down. The younger officer carefully picked it up with both hands and offered it back. "Sir." "Thank you." Malcolm returned it to the velvet case and closed the zipper. Behind the aircraft door, voices had grown louder. Passengers were no longer taking their seats. Someone inside said clearly, "We're not leaving until this is sorted out." The older officer looked toward the cabin, then back at Malcolm. "I think the situation on board is changing." Inside the cabin, Evelyn pressed send. The progress bar crawled across her screen while Claire was still arguing with a passenger in row 3. Rain tapped against the fuselage, and the weak airport signal made the upload hesitate. "Come on," Evelyn whispered. The bar froze at 92%. Daniel Ortiz leaned over the armrest. "Can you send it to someone outside?" "My son," she replied. "And someone from airport oversight." Claire noticed the phones. "Ladies and gentlemen, electronic devices must be put away." No one moved. The upload reached 100%. A soft chime sounded. "It went through," Evelyn said quietly. Daniel took a slow breath and opened the photograph he had snapped a few minutes earlier. He enlarged the frame where Malcolm's coat had shifted open. 3 silver stars. Not decorative pins. Not souvenirs. His heartbeat slowed instead of racing. He remembered a briefing 3 years earlier. A senior commander had entered without introduction, listened more than he spoke, and corrected a logistics failure that had nearly ended several careers. The same measured posture. The same calm voice. Daniel looked toward the empty seat, 2A. "No." The businessman beside him frowned. "You know him?" "I think I do." Grant stepped back into the aisle. "Everyone, please remain seated. The passenger has been removed." "He walked out," Evelyn answered. "He was escorted." "He walked." Grant ignored her. "The delay will be minimal." Daniel stood. "What's his name?" "That information is private. You already announced he was disruptive." Grant's jaw tightened. "The matter is closed." Daniel lifted his phone. "Then explain these." He showed the enlarged image of the silver insignia. Claire barely glanced at it. "That proves nothing." "It proves enough for me." She folded her arms. "You're making assumptions." "No," Daniel said. "I'm remembering." He searched the passenger manifest displayed on his airline application. One name remained attached to seat 2A. Malcolm Reed. Daniel's expression changed. He opened another application, typed quickly, then stopped. Instead of searching the internet, he called a number saved years earlier. A calm voice answered. "Duty Operations. This is Captain Daniel Ortiz, Retired Reserve, passenger on Flight 482. How can I help you?" "I need to confirm whether Lieutenant General Malcolm Reed is traveling today." Silence. Then the voice became careful. "Why are you asking?" "Because I believe he's standing on a jet bridge after being removed from first class." Another pause. "Stay where you are." The call ended. Evelyn looked at him. "Well?" "I wasn't told no." Outside the windows, a service vehicle stopped beneath the aircraft. Inside, more passengers unbuckled their seatbelts. The businessman rose first. "If that gentleman isn't allowed back on board, I'm getting off." A woman across the aisle stood beside him. "So am I." Within seconds, the quiet clicks of releasing buckles spread through first class like falling dominoes. Grant raised both hands. Please sit down. No one did. The cockpit door opened. Captain Samuel Voss stepped into the aisle. What is happening here? Daniel faced him directly. Captain, before this aircraft moves, someone needs to verify who you just removed. The captain looked toward the open aircraft door. At that same moment, his headset crackled with an incoming call from airport operations. Captain Voss pressed 2 fingers to his headset. This is Voss. The reply was faint, but his face changed. He turned toward the open aircraft door. Repeat the name. Daniel remained in the aisle. Evelyn held her phone steady. Every first-class passenger stood beside an unfastened belt. Voss listened, then lowered the headset. Who removed Lieutenant General Malcolm Reed from this aircraft? Claire opened her mouth, but Grant answered first. We had a non-compliant passenger. That wasn't my question. Air hissed from the vents. A glass trembled as a baggage cart rolled beneath the fuselage. Daniel stepped forward. He showed a valid pass. The gate agent confirmed it. They refused to check the live manifest. Claire pointed at him. He interfered with crew instructions. I witnessed you strike him. A woman in 3A raised her phone. So did I. The businessman across from Evelyn said, I'm not sitting until he is brought back. Grant's voice hardened. Passengers do not decide who remains aboard. No, Evelyn replied, but we decide whether we stay. She stepped into the aisle. One by one, others followed. Seat 1D. Seat 2C. Both passengers in row 3. An older man with a cane stood. The overhead indicators glowed red above every empty seat. Voss looked down the aisle. Is anyone willing to sit? No one moved. Daniel held up the image. I served under a command that reported to him. He saved our unit after senior officers buried a logistics failure. He protected the truth, not rank. Claire's jaw tightened. You expect us to believe that because of a pin? No, because operations confirmed his identity. The interphone chimed. Voss answered, listened, and said, Keep the door open. No pushback. He handed the receiver to Grant. Airport Command wants your incident report preserved exactly as entered. No edits. Grant stared at the handset. Claire whispered, Samuel, we can explain. Captain, Voss corrected. The word ended the conversation. On the jet bridge, Malcolm heard the cabin noise change. Shoes filled the aisle. Luggage handles clicked. Voices refused instructions without rising. The older officer glanced through the doorway. They're all standing. Malcolm stayed seated. His phone lit with Leah's name. This time he answered. Dad? I'm here. You sound strange. There was a delay. Are you coming? He looked through rain-streaked glass at the stationary aircraft. I'm trying. A brief burst of applause came from the cabin, then stopped. Leah heard it. What was that? People making a decision. Captain Voss appeared at the door. General Reed. Malcolm stood, but left the bag on the floor. I owe you an apology, Voss said. You owe the cabin a verified record. Yes, sir. And the gate agent should be present. She's on her way. Behind him, passengers remained standing. Evelyn lifted her phone enough for Malcolm to see the red recording light. Daniel met Malcolm's eyes. Malcolm picked up the canvas bag. Before crossing the threshold, he looked at Voss. Bring me the electronic manifest. Voss stepped aside. From the far end of the jet bridge came Melissa Kane's quick footsteps. In her hand was a fresh printout. The printer was still warm when Marla Benton took the manifest from Melissa Kane. Read it yourself, Melissa said, slightly out of breath. Marla adjusted her glasses beneath the bright ceiling lights of the operations office. Rainwater glistened on the shoulders of her dark jacket. She had crossed the ramp without waiting for an escort. Seat 2, A. Passenger, Malcolm Reed. Status, confirmed. She looked at Melissa. How many times did you verify this? Twice before boarding. Once after Claire questioned it. And every time? The same result. Marla folded the paper carefully instead of rushing towards the aircraft. Come with me. The jet bridge smelled of wet metal and recycled air. Malcolm stood beside the window with the canvas bag resting against his leg while the two security officers waited several steps away. Marla stopped in front of him. Mr. Reed? General is unnecessary. She nodded once. I owe you accuracy before anything else. She opened the manifest where everyone could see it. Seat 2A. Confirmed before boarding. Confirmed after the aircraft change. Confirmed now. Grant stared at the page. That isn't the list we received. No, Marla answered. You received a printed service copy generated before the final synchronization. Claire took one step forward. We acted on the information available. You acted without verifying conflicting information. Silence settled over the narrow bridge. Only the ventilation hummed above them. Marla turned to Melissa. Tell them what happened. Melissa swallowed. I told Claire the scanner accepted his boarding pass. And? She asked me to continue boarding. Did you tell her the electronic record still showed seat 2A? Yes. Claire closed her eyes for a brief moment. I thought the paper manifest had priority. Marla looked directly at her. Thought isn't procedure. Malcolm remained quiet. The older security officer handed Marla the leather credential wallet. I confirmed his identification. She opened it only long enough to verify the photograph, then immediately closed it. That should never have been necessary. Captain Voss stepped onto the bridge. Airport Command is requesting a full preservation order. Marla nodded. No reports are to be edited. Grant shifted uneasily. I intended to complete mine after departure. You'll complete it exactly as events occurred. Evelyn and several first-class passengers watched from the aircraft doorway. Their phones remained lowered now, but none of them had returned to their seats. Daniel stepped forward. Captain, we're still waiting. Voss looked at Malcolm. Sir, the aircraft is ready whenever you are. Malcolm didn't move. Not yet. He looked at Marla instead. I'd like every recording preserved. Passenger videos, cabin communications, gate logs, no exceptions. They already are. And the gate agent? Melissa straightened. I'm here. You did your job. Her shoulders relaxed for the first time all evening. Claire lowered her eyes. I should have listened. Malcolm didn't answer the apology. Instead, he looked at the open aircraft door, where the first-class cabin remained completely empty, despite every passenger still standing beside a seat. Captain, he said quietly, before anyone boards again, I want every witness to know they won't be asked to surrender a single recording. Voss nodded. They won't. Only then did Malcolm lift the canvas bag. Behind him, Grant stared at the untouched printed manifest still clutched in his hand, finally realizing that one outdated sheet of paper had changed far more than the departure time. 2 weeks later, Claire aligned the blank page in front of her for the 4th time. The conference room had no windows. Fluorescent panels buzzed above a gray table, and the air smelled of toner and burnt coffee. Across from her sat Malcolm in a dark suit, his canvas bag beside his chair. Rebecca Shaw, 52, an independent passenger safety examiner, switched on the wall monitor. This hearing is being recorded, she said. No one may revise prior statements after evidence is presented. Grant shifted. Understood. Claire kept both hands flat on the empty page. Rebecca looked toward Evelyn. Mrs. Park, is this the original file? Yes, sent before anyone ordered me to delete it. The video began. Claire's voice filled the room. You've embarrassed this crew long enough. Then came the slap. No one moved. Claire straightened the page again, though its edges were already square. Rebecca paused the image. Your report states Mr. Reed initiated physical contact. He blocked me from taking the bag. Malcolm spoke for the first time. I placed my hand on the strap. Malcolm's hand settled over the canvas handle before Claire reached it. Do you see a strike, shove, or advance? No. Then why call him physically aggressive? Claire's fingertips curled against the paper. I believed he was challenging my authority. Grant cleared his throat. The cabin was escalating. Because of the passenger? Because others interfered. We asked you to verify a ticket. Rebecca raised one hand, then opened an audio file. Grant's voice emerged through static. Mark him non-compliant now. We can clean up the wording after pushback. Grant's chair creaked. That was operational shorthand. For entering an allegation before checking the manifest? We had a departure slot. So, punctuality outweighed verification. Grant rubbed his thumb along his folder. At the time, yes. Melissa sat near the door. Rebecca faced her. What did you tell Ms. Harlan? That the scanner showed confirmed. I refreshed the reservation and said it again. Were you heard? Melissa looked at Claire. Yes. Claire lifted the blank page. I heard her. Rebecca waited. Why did you ignore her? The lights hummed above them while no one reached for the untouched coffee. My evaluation was the next week, Claire said. We'd already had 2 late departures. He corrected me in front of everyone, so calm that I decided the calm was defiance. Malcolm's gaze stayed on the closed velvet box beside his bag. I wanted him to comply before I had to admit I might be wrong. Evelyn lowered her eyes to her folded hands. Rebecca turned to Grant. And you? He stared at the table. I chose the schedule. No, Rebecca said. You chose not to check. The final exhibit appeared, the live manifest, time-stamped 3 minutes before the removal order. 2A, confirmed. Rebecca slid copies toward Claire and Grant. Malcolm did not touch his. General Reed, do you wish to respond? He looked at Claire's blank page. Write what happened. Claire picked up her pen, but her hand shook hard enough that the tip clicked twice against the paper before leaving the first line. The settlement folder remained unopened. Harold Finch, the 58-year-old director of compliance, slid it across the polished conference table anyway. The embossed seal caught the afternoon light. This agreement includes financial compensation, he said. A confidentiality clause is standard. Malcolm rested 2 fingers on the cover, but did not open it. How many pages? 32. And how many explain what happened? Harold hesitated. The findings are summarized. Summarized. The word hung in the room. Across the table, Claire sat without her uniform for the first time. A plain gray jacket had replaced the navy blazer she had worn on the aircraft. Grant kept his eyes on the legal folder in front of him. Harold cleared his throat. The disciplinary panel has reached its decision. He turned the first page of his notes. Claire Harlan violated passenger verification procedures, improperly attempted to seize personal property, made a false factual assertion in the incident report, and used unauthorized physical contact during a nonviolent dispute. Claire closed her eyes briefly. Her employment is terminated effective immediately. No one reacted. Harold continued. Grant Bell knowingly approved an incident report before mandatory verification was completed and instructed staff to prioritize departure over documented procedure. Grant exhaled slowly. He is removed from supervisory duties and suspended pending recertification. Any future assignment involving passenger authority requires successful completion of corrective training. The heating system clicked softly behind the wall. Harold pushed the settlement folder closer again. These actions do not prevent a civil resolution. Malcolm looked at the folder. Does signing this prevent public recommendations? It would limit future disclosure. Then take it back. Harold blinked. You're declining? I am. You haven't read the amount. I don't need to. He slid the unopened folder across the table. The next passenger won't benefit from my signature. Silence settled over the room. Claire finally spoke. I wrote everything exactly as it happened. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I wasn't asked to decide that today. She lowered her head. My daughter watched the hearing recording. Malcolm remained still. She asked me why I never checked the computer. No one answered. Grant rubbed the edge of his identification badge between his thumb and forefinger. I kept thinking about the departure clock. Malcolm turned toward him. The clock wasn't your responsibility. Grant frowned. The passengers were. Harold closed his notebook. The Oversight Board has requested recommendations before issuing its final report. Malcolm nodded once. No disciplinary recommendation? They already have those. What then? A mandatory second verification whenever printed and electronic records disagree. Harold wrote. Continue. No passenger should surrender a personal phone merely because someone wants faster compliance. Another note. All passenger recordings related to a disputed removal must be preserved automatically. Harold looked up. Anything else? Malcolm thought for a moment. One witness should always have the right to request an independent airport supervisor before a passenger is removed. Harold underlined the sentence. That changes current practice. It should. The meeting ended without handshakes. Outside, rain tapped against the courthouse-style windows while employees crossed the parking lot with coats over their heads. Melissa waited near the elevator. I wanted to thank you, she said quietly. You already did. I almost stayed silent, but you didn't. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. As Malcolm stepped inside, Harold hurried from the conference room holding a single sheet of paper. The Oversight Board accepted every recommendation, he said. They're asking if you'll attend the implementation meeting next month. Malcolm looked at the page, then folded it once. I'll come. This time, the goal was no longer to correct one report. It was to change the rule that had allowed it to happen. Verify the live record before you exercise authority. Malcolm read the training card, then placed it flat on the table. 12 supervisors faced a screen showing the new protocol. Marker scented the room. Rain tapped the windows. Harold Finch adjusted his glasses. The board approved the wording. It sounds optional, Malcolm said. The second check is mandatory, a trainer replied. Then write mandatory. She erased the sentence. Rubber squeaked across the board. Verify first. Authority second. Daniel stood at the back. Evelyn sat beside him with draft witness cards. Harold changed the slide. If records conflict, 2 employees must confirm status before removal. And if a supervisor refuses? Daniel asked. The disagreement is logged with independent operations. Evelyn raised a card. Can the passenger request that person directly? Harold paused. Malcolm looked at him. Add it. At 10:20, they moved into a mock cabin. Narrow seats and recorded ventilation recreated a boarding delay. A trainee held an outdated manifest. This passenger is not listed. Another answered. The scanner shows confirmed. The first checked the clock. 4 minutes to departure. Malcolm remained at the rear. What happens next? I call for a second verification. Before labeling the passenger? Yes. Before touching property? Yes. Before asking for a phone? The trainee lowered the paper. We do not take the phone. Evelyn's pen stopped. Only the recorded cabin hum remained. Daniel said, "Put that in bold." At lunch, Evelyn spread the cards across a cafeteria table. Record from a safe distance. State what you observed. Do not block crew movement. Request an independent supervisor. Daniel turned one over. Too much text. People under stress don't read. Malcolm peeled the sleeve from his tea. Keep 4 lines. Evelyn tapped the last sentence. This stays. Daniel nodded. She crossed out half the card. In the afternoon, Marla Benton demonstrated the preservation system. A disputed removal now copied gate logs, cabin audio, scanner records, and drafts automatically. No edits? Melissa asked. Every change creates a timestamp, Marla said. Grant sat alone near the aisle. The trainer handed him a scenario. Printed manifest says no. Live system says yes. Departure slot closes in 90 seconds. Grant read it twice. What do you do? He looked toward Malcolm, then back at the page. I hold the aircraft. For how long? Until the fact is verified. The clock counted down in red. Grant reached for the mock interphone. Captain, we have a document conflict. The door remains open. Malcolm gave no approval. He wrote one note in the margin. At 4:05, the finished card came from the printer, still warm in Harold's hand. Verify first. Authority second. Below it were double confirmation, protected recordings, independent review, and witness access. Evelyn slid one into her purse. Daniel tucked another behind his identification. Malcolm left his on the table. Not taking it? Melissa asked. He watched another class enter the mock cabin. They're the ones who need it. Inside, the trainer closed the door, started the clock, and placed an outdated manifest into a supervisor's hands. At 7:18 p.m., Malcolm entered the auditorium through a side door while Leah was already speaking. He stopped beneath the exit light, rain darkening the shoulders of his charcoal coat. On stage, Naomi's portrait stood beside white flowers. Leah saw him before anyone else did. Her voice caught for half a second, then continued. My mother believed a promise mattered most when keeping it was inconvenient. Malcolm lowered his eyes. The only open place in the front row was the chair marked Malcolm Reed. He sat quietly, the old canvas bag between his shoes. Beside him, an empty chair held Naomi's blue scarf. After the ceremony, Leah found him near the stage. You missed the beginning. I know. You said you'd be here. I tried. She studied the faint red mark still visible along his cheek, then looked at the bag. What happened? Malcolm opened the velvet case just enough for her to see the 3 silver stars. A delay that became something else. Leah did not ask for details. She took his hand and led him back to the empty chair. Together they listened while the first scholarship recipient read Naomi's name aloud. 3 months later, the Airport Oversight Board released its public report. The new verification rule had already been used 11 times, each time resolving a conflict before a passenger was removed. Training records, cabin audio, gate logs, and incident drafts were now preserved automatically. Evelyn's witness card had been adopted at every terminal, and Daniel returned twice to teach employees how to intervene without escalating a scene. Melissa was promoted to lead gate agent. Grant completed recertification and accepted a non-supervisory role. He sent Malcolm one short note. I should have checked before I chose. Claire did not appeal her dismissal. Her letter arrived in a plain white envelope with no request for forgiveness. I kept thinking authority meant never backing down. I understand now that I was afraid of being seen as wrong. Malcolm read it at his kitchen table. 2 coffee cups sat before him again, but this time Leah occupied the second chair. "Are you going to answer?" she asked. He folded the letter once. "No." "Why keep it?" "Because forgetting would make it too easy." He placed the letter beside Naomi's silver insignia, then turned the second cup so its handle faced Leah. In May, the scholarship ceremony returned to the same auditorium. Malcolm arrived 40 minutes early. Evelyn sat near the aisle, still carrying one of the printed witness cards in her purse. Daniel stood at the back in a dark suit. Melissa had flown in on her day off. Even Marla attended, holding the final training report beneath one arm. The chair beside Malcolm remained empty. Leah laid Naomi's scarf across it and smoothed the fabric with both hands. "Better timing," she said. "Much." During the closing remarks, the first scholarship recipient thanked the people who had created safer procedures for strangers they might never meet. Malcolm did not stand when the audience applauded. He only rested one hand on the canvas bag, now softened at the corners from years of use. Outside, evening air moved through the open lobby doors. The scarf on the empty chair lifted once, then settled. The silver stars stayed in the bag. Have you ever witnessed someone being judged, dismissed, or mistreated before the facts were checked? Share what happened in the comments, especially if one quiet person chose to speak when everyone else stayed silent. Send this story to someone who believes dignity should never depend on rank, appearance, or the seat printed on a ticket. Stories like Malcolm's matter because accountability does not end with one apology. It continues through better rules, protected witnesses, and people willing to verify the truth. Subscribe for more stories about justice, quiet resilience, and ordinary decisions that lead to lasting change. And remember the question Evelyn's recording left behind. When the moment comes, will you remain seated, or will you stand?